Tilt Shift. Real talk about real ideas.
Welcome to Tilt Shift. I'm Tim.
I'm Brian.
Brian, it is season 3.
Season 3. Can you believe that?
I can't. I'm excited.
Back on set?
We got some great episodes. I was going to say great movies, but I don't know if that always that's not accurate in every case. But
they're great to look at and analyze and think about critically.
That's right. So we're going to be having a lot of fun this season, and we're excited about it. We want to say thanks to the audience who've been watching so far and giving so many kind feedback and everything. That's very encouraging, and we're glad that we're able to help you think better about how you're watching movies, to discern what you're watching. So today we're going to be looking at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, Volume 3. So this is PG-13. This has got some intense sequences of violence throughout, some strong language and suggested drug use and stuff like references in there. And so definitely watch out for those things in the movie.
That's right. And if you're familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy series, they're the first two of the whole series, they're a little bit sillier than a lot of the MCU movies, other than maybe like the
bit
last,
more fun
other
overall.
than like the last Thor movie, which was like over the top, silly and dumb. But these have been pretty silly, and this one takes a bit more of a serious tone to it. So it's a group of outcasts and loners. They form a tight bond, and they have to overcome powerful villains. Kind of the same theme, at least that part of it, as the other ones. But this one does have a more serious.
It does overall. And of course the content, one of the main characters, the background story to the character and kind of what they're going through, and you kind of get connected to them in that and you care about them. There's definitely a tighter relationship, I think, with the audience to the characters in that relationship to the movie itself. And also, I mean, the movie definitely lends itself to lean into the characters. There's some really well-written characters that you get connected to, enjoy watching, so it definitely leans into that.
Yeah, so the first film, pretty fun overall.
Yep.
And second one got really strange and bizarre in a lot of places.
Well, Star-Lord's dad is a celestial who's a planet, so it got weird.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. So it lost a little bit of the charm of the first one, I thought. I know some people really liked it. The third one, we mentioned it has a more serious story. This one about Rocket, the raccoon. And there's still some bizarre and silly stuff, but it is a much more serious film. So just a quick summary. Within the first few minutes, Rocket is attacked. And while he's still clinging to life, the others are, have to try to capture, kill the person that attacked him, and it sets up the rest of the story as the team tries to rescue him or keep him from dying.
And basically, he's got some kind of thing inside of him, some kind of kill switch that can't really be overridden unless there's a special passcode. So they're going about the whole movie trying to get the passcode to save his life. And really, it's all about them caring about their friend and trying to save his life.
Right. So we learned that in our first clip, we're going to learn that Rocket, the raccoon, he's part of an experiment.
Wait. He's the talking raccoon.
That's right.
That's right. In case you're not familiar with the movies, it is a talking raccoon.
Right. That's how serious these films are. Yeah.
It's very serious.
So he was part of an experiment being done by somebody called the High Evolutionary. Of course, we're going to come and talk about that.
So
you know
he's bad right off the bat.
Yeah.
He's got the word evolution in it. Can't be
right. So Rocket is 89P13. That's what the High Evolutionary calls
it. Just rolls off the tongue.
89P13. It does a lot for him in this movie. He says it all the time. So there are several scenes in this movie that raise the issue of animal testing. Whether that is ethical. They don't really get into it much and say this is so wrong. They're kind of showing you how awful it can be. So in the film, the High Evolutionary is attempting to create the perfect being, the perfect society, and all of his attempts so far have failed. Rocket, for whatever reason, just has this extraordinary brain. He's super intelligent, and the High Evolutionary wants to study him, and so he's ordered people to capture Rocket, and that's what we're going to see. That's the background for this first clip.
He doesn't know any better. We shall do whatever you require, my liege.
You knew of 89P13's existence for years without alerting me. That's not what I require!
I'm sorry, my liege.
Find 89P13 and return it to me, or I will destroy your entire civilization, as is my right as your maker. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Toodle-doo.
So it seems like a nice guy.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
He's the worst. The worst.
It's just the kind of guy you want to hang out with on a Friday night, right?
And he refers to Rocket as it. not a person, keeps calling him by his number rather than a name. So you see, that's his view of Rocket. And of course, he calls himself their maker, but is he really a maker?
Well, he's more of a tinkerer.
Yeah.
So there's things material that's already existing and creatures that are already existing, and he's trying to perfect them. Sort of like what we saw with Spider-Man in season 2, where he's trying to fix a defect, and he thinks it's just a physical problem that he can solve. And in many cases, that wasn't working. Now, that was for a good reason. People who are broken, he's trying to help them get back to what they could have been.
Yeah.
This is just somebody who's trying to make improvements and very prideful. And I think some people would look at the High Evolutionary, his character being like the God of the Bible. That's how I think a lot of atheists would view the God of the Bible. He's just cruel. He punishes if they, he just wants to squash people if they don't do what he wants. In fact, in this film, at one point, he destroys an entire planet.
Well, that's what he does. He's more like, if you want to call him a god of sorts, he's like the Greek gods. He's very emotional. He is capricious, makes irrational decisions, even blames others for his mistakes because he's not really a god at all. So he's definitely not a god that anyone would really want to serve or to have because of that inconsistency. Now, the biblical God, he is consistent. He's consistent with his character, both Old and New Testament. He is always right and just in all that he does. And you see that if you rightly read the Bible in context, even in the Old Testament, it's right there, really plain as day. If you're careful to read the text in context, he is consistent with his judgment and his love, and how he actually provides that and shows that to people around him.
Yeah, and so in the scene, we see this character, the High Evolutionary, say that is my right as your maker.
Yeah.
And there is, from a biblical perspective, God does have the right over us. He made us. He sets the rules. And if he says if you sin, if you rebel, the penalty is death. He's got the right to do that. But he's also loving. He's also patient. He's gracious. And like you said, he's consistent. But in this one, he is more of a tinkerer, where he's just kind of playing around, trying to get things right.
Step by step, trying to make it better by better with these new experiments.
It reminds me,
right?
so he's manipulating and in many cases mutilating these creatures. It seems
there's some
to me
weird-looking creatures in this movie.
Yeah, but it's a lot more like theistic evolution.
Sure.
People who think that God used evolution, or maybe even like progressive creation. Like he's working toward getting it right.
Absolutely.
And that's not who the God of the Bible is.
Not at all. He got it right the first time.
It's not trial and error. Like, now I'm finally satisfied after hundreds of millions of attempts to get that right. Now I finally got it. That's not how God is described. He makes everything in 6 days, and everything's very good. So there's no problem.
Well, and if God did that, if he used evolution, then it's a whole process of death and brokenness over time, and so much suffering to so many different things throughout that particular time, which is what the High Evolutionary does, actually.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And then he incinerates the culture. He just destroys it if it doesn't turn out the way he wants it, right? And so the God of the Bible, as you said, doesn't do that. He made it perfect the first time, and then there is brokenness in our world, but that's because of man's sin.
Right, it's not God's fault.
faulty creation.
It's us. So we're going to see what the High Evolutionary thinks of himself. So in this next clip, let's take a look.
Sire, we must retreat. The ship is going down.
The spaceport has intruders.
Go! See if one of them is 89P13.
Sire, you have an irrational obsession with this animal. You must stop for God's sake.
There is no God! That's why I stepped in!
Yeah, he's a little bit prideful.
You know what, though? Honest to goodness, I watched that clip, and whenever we sin, that's, in a sense, what we're saying. We're saying, at least if God does exist, I don't want him to be in control. So I'm going to step in and do what I think is best in whatever given situation. I mean, sin at its heart is that sort of rebellion.
Yeah, we may not rationalize that. We may not be having that conscious thought like, okay, I don't really believe God exists. Because, I've believed God exists my entire life. But there's times where, when I sin, it's like I just would prefer to still do it my way.
Yeah, we want to step in. We want to take control. We want to sit on the throne and not him. And in essence, that's what sin always is.
Yeah, so the Bible tells us in Psalm 14 and also in Psalm 53, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Well, we just heard a fool. Because if you think about it, somebody who is atheistic, like this character, he wouldn't even exist if God didn't exist. God makes us, and then so he can't say those things unless God does exist, and then he's making that statement.
And understand when the Bible uses that word fool about the person who says there is no God, it's not name calling, but it's just.
And it's not saying lack of intelligence. Like
It's given a right. This is what you call someone who rejects the obvious truth of the Creator God that is all around us and even in us.